Hello everyone. This is Tobi from the Phuket Meditation Center, and you're listening to the Dharana Meditation Podcast. Let's sit together, calm the busy mind, and explore topics concerning character development, meditative training, and deeper self-knowledge. Sitting upright, the spine is straight, body is relaxed. The head is suspended from above. And let your posture be still. Breathing in a way that feels comfortable. As you inhale, feel the body. And while you're exhaling, notice how the body relaxes a bit. Think of one breath as one session of meditation. Task is very simple. Breathing in feeling, breathing out softening. With each breath, let there be a feeling of completion, of being done. There's nothing further to chase. Nowhere to get. Nothing to pursue. Just satisfying every craving with this single breath. Let each breath be a door into contentment. It'll be completely normal for your mind to wander, for your attention to move around. See if you can know that when the attention moves to sounds, sensations, thoughts, perhaps sight, smell or taste. Develop a habit of knowing where your attention is right now in this moment. can keep this simplicity of knowing your in-breath and experiencing that natural release during the out-breath as your central reflection, your home base, something to return to. Recognizing distraction, gently returning to this breath. Breathing in, feeling, breathing out, softening. One session of meditation. Notice not only when distractions arise, but also how you react to them. Is there annoyance, impatience, complaining, hoping, waiting, trying? Just casually noticing those things. Recognizing them is a simple habit of your nervous system. Nothing personal. Just something that arises because it's been repeated many, many times. And if you can, notice how the mind tends to go out and grasp objects, grasping sounds, grasping thought, grasping sensations. How the mind is interested in all those things. Even goes and seeks those things out. And now every time it does, it's the end of stillness, the end of peace. The beginning of restlessness, chasing, trying, holding, tensing. And on the other hand, you can see that if you let go, if you drop all those objects, there is contentment with your being. Turning within. And a deepening of peace. And let the simplicity of knowing that you're breathing in, knowing that you're breathing out, be enough. Just rest with that. Gently keeping the breath in mind. while maintaining a gentle connection with your breathing, you can slowly come back. Stretch a bit if you like. Good morning. Good to see all of you. Can anyone give me a working definition of suffering? What is suffering? What is stress? Yes?
Not being in the present.
Not being in the present, okay. Anything else?
Anything that's not heaven.
Anything that is?
Not heaven.
Not heaven, okay. Yes?
Anything is not happiness.
Anything that's not happiness, okay. You'd have to define heaven and happiness. What is happiness?
What's suffering?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out that, yeah. We have to go down like a definition tree.
Different types of suffering.
Yes.
What is suffering?
Yeah, what is suffering? Okay, so I'll give you a definition of suffering that I find to be quite practical and working. Suffering would be that which arises with craving and ignorance at its base, at its root. Suffering is something that arises. It is not something that is already there, by definition. It is something that is produced, that is kind of, you can say, fabricated, made, which opens up the possibility that it could be released, it could be put to an end. If it was something that is inherent, that is already given, that can never be changed, then there's absolutely no point in doing anything because we're still subject to suffering no matter what. Doesn't matter how much you manage, doesn't matter how much you cope, you will still suffer. But since we all engage in so many attempts throughout our entire lifetime to actually deal with suffering, to actually try to overcome it, and we do it with more or less success, it points to the fact that it is possible to overcome it. That's why I say it arises with craving and ignorance at its base. Craving and ignorance being the two primary causes, of which ignorance is more vast, we can say. Craving is kind of a result of ignorance. So these two, craving and ignorance, often referred to as the parents of suffering. I think there is a text in which the Buddha talks about killing the parents, which he refers to not, of course, your physical parents, but the parents of suffering. Yes, to go beyond craving and ignorance. So, as I mentioned before, that there has to be a definition tree to make that definition even more clear. That with craving and ignorance at its base. What is craving then? So I would define craving in a simple way as wanting what is not and not wanting what is, or reaching out as well. You could also say a reaching out of the mind. I'll clarify this later. Today's session is going to be about actually craving and being able to recognize it, properly identify it within your own experience. Then you have ignorance, which I would refer to as taking something to be true that is not, and taking something to be false that is true. An example would be, as I always give that example, a dreamer not being aware that he's dreaming. While he's being in the dream, there's no idea that everything that he sees, he smells, he tastes, he interacts with is actually his own mind. There is nothing external per se, but It appears that there is. So taking what appears to be the truth, that would be ignorance. So we're deceived into believing that what appears is actually the way it is. Which for the dreamer then means that there is actually a house that he moves towards. But really, is there a house that he moves towards? Is there even any direction that is taken? Any distance that is really made? Not really, but the dreamer doesn't know that. This not knowing the reality, not knowing of the truth, that would be an example of ignorance. So now you know the definitions of all those terms. Suffering, craving, ignorance. So suffering arises if there is craving, if there's ignorance. You can say craving arises if there's ignorance. The primary root would be ignorance. If there is ignorance, craving arises. If there's craving, suffering arises instantly. And we can clearly understand this from our own experience right now, right here. The moment you do not like or you do not want what is, you already suffer, you're already restless. Well, the moment you want something that is not, like you're aiming for something other than this moment, there is a lack of contentment already. It's fairly obvious. There's a dissatisfaction with this moment. The moment you have a dissatisfaction, you're already restless, you're already suffering. There's already a kind of contraction of your being. A pulling together, a tightness, the heart is closing. So what is happiness? Since we can say it's the opposite of suffering, perhaps, or heaven. How would I define happiness? Happiness is that which is revealed when suffering is absent. That works as you can say it works on a scale. The less you suffer, the more happiness there is revealed. Like the clouds that exist in the sky, the less there are clouds, the more visible the sky is. The sky is already there. And when the clouds go away, that's when it is revealed. The blueness of the sky then stands revealed. Revealed, not created. It doesn't arise. Happiness does not arise like suffering does. It is already there, but it is kind of, you can say, blocked, clouded over. It is darkened. That doesn't mean that we sometimes don't experience it. We do experience happiness to a certain extent. If you notice the mechanics of happiness, then every time in your life you will experience happiness at the ending of a problem. If you're very hungry, that is very stressful. Happiness arises when you encounter food. The greater the hunger, the more pleasant the experience of food. Here is the confusion, which is again ignorance. We then think, it's the food that makes me happy. Really, it's the ending of hunger that feels good. And the promise of food, even the promise of it, already makes you feel joyful. You haven't even arrived yet. You can already smell it. For those of you who already done a fast, for example, 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, whatever, water fast, something like that, you know how it is to break your fast and you have some nice food after that. It's amazing. Of course, the longer the fast, the nicer it is than to eat after. Of course, people are different. Some people, they feel very satisfied when they fast longer. They don't even have any drive to eat after a while. So happiness is that which is revealed when suffering ends. A big work task that you've been working on for the past 5 months is now coming to an end. Or it is payday. You finally get your salary. Or you win the lottery. Why is that so nice to win a bunch of money? Why do people like it so much? Because it's an end of poverty. It's the end of something that has weighed you down throughout your entire life. The fact that you had to worry about making a living, for example. For some people, that's very intense. They experience a great struggle and great suffering around money. So of course, when that ends, it's like a big weight coming off their shoulders. And that coming off the weight, that is happiness. Suddenly lightness is revealed. It's not that you are adding lightness, you're just taking away the weight. You're just taking away the constriction. Openness is the result. Yes? That's why I say happiness is what is revealed. And it is revealed in the ending of suffering. So now happiness and suffering are, I think, properly defined. I invite you to reflect on those definitions. You can think of them. You can listen to this again when you come back home. I upload those things up. You can listen to them. You can reflect again. Write those definitions down for yourself. See, are they working? Are they in accordance with what is true? Now let's have a closer look at craving. What is craving? So I've defined it previously in a very simple way as wanting what is not and not wanting what is. Let's become a bit more precise about it. Really, in its essence, craving is your mind approaching objects. It is your mind reaching towards something. It's just the act of reaching out. And that reaching out is fueled by interest. That interest is fueled by the idea that objects can satisfy you, they can fulfill you, they can give you happiness. Like for the hungry person, is reaching out to food because they believe that food is what makes them happy due to ignorance. It's not the food that makes you happy. Again, it's the coming to an end of suffering, of stress. That is what feels good. But in our confusion, we then grasp, we reach out towards food, which of course is necessary to survive. If we didn't have that, nobody would eat, nobody would do anything. Okay, so obviously we do need this. Our body, our mind, we do have to reach out to objects to make sure that we can survive. But we can, for example, split all objects of life into two categories. One is those objects that are necessary for survival. And the other category is objects that are not necessary for survival. Both of them really have nothing to do with happiness. But one is necessary, one is not. So objects that are necessary for survival are healthy food, shelter, medicine, clothing, good company, and so on. So you have protection, you can survive. It's fairly basic. Like, for example, a monk. They don't have much. They only have what it takes to survive. They live a beggar's life. Very simple, very basic. No possessions of your own. Not much privacy either. You share everything with a group. When you have a schedule, everything in your life is dictated from the outside. When do you need to get up? When do you need to go to sleep? What do you need to study? What do you need to do? At what time? It's all regulated. It's all taken away from you. There's a reason for that. It confronts you with suffering, and thereby giving you a chance to overcome the true causes of suffering, to overcome craving and ignorance. But, as I said, it's fairly simple, so there is not much need for any kind of craving there. It takes it away. You don't have to worry about finances. You don't have to worry about taxes. You don't have to worry about insurance. You don't have to worry about anything, shelter, whatever, food. This is all provided. That's the reason why a monk's life is it's much more simple actually. So it's more easy to go deep. Our life, much more complicated. We have to look after our families, we have to make sure that we have insurances, that we have enough income, that we can afford food, that we can afford shelter, and so on and so forth. All that makes life more stressful. We're kind of more on our own, more disconnected in a way. The monk knows he's fully connected, he's fully dependent, which we actually all are, fully dependent on each other. Where do your clothes come from? Who makes your food? Who gives you money? And so on and so forth. Who allows you to move around freely? It could be a very restrictive government. You can't leave your house. What are you going to do? You can't do anything about it. If you do, you get jailed. You have a gun to your head. You cannot say whatever you want to say. And so on. There are places like this in the world where you have very little freedom in that regard. Anyways, not to get too sidetracked, craving would be this habit of the mind to reach out towards objects. And it does that in order to what? Define itself with those objects. Like I'm reaching out to my body to define myself as, I'm Tobi, I'm a man. Or I reach out to my mind to define myself with, well, my political view is such and such. Okay, I'm this and that kind of person. My past is like that. My traumas are like this. Therefore, I am like that. So identification is one reason why we reach out towards object. We're looking for things to identify with, that give us a sense of self. And that sense of self must remain stable throughout our life. Imagine your sense of self would change every 10 seconds. For one, suddenly you feel like you are a fridge. Then, 10 seconds later, you feel like you are Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then 10 seconds later, you feel like you are a tulip. Then you are a dog. Then you are a man. Then you are a woman. Then, like constantly changing, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Imagine how it would make your life absolutely impossible. You couldn't do anything properly. So we need some consistency of identification to lead a life that is meaningful. If we don't have that consistency, then we would call that mental illness, perhaps, like being psychotic or something like this. You don't have the same kind of consistency of a sense of self that the person has without that mental illness. So it makes it impossible to engage in a normal life. So there is a point to that consistency. And so one reason for craving is that you maintain that identification. You reach out towards objects to know what you are in this world, where you stand, what your position is, who you belong to, what groups, and so on. So that's one reason. Please, again, I'm saying this to make sure I'm not belittling the fact that we are reaching out in order to identify. There's not an issue with that. It's a normal thing that the mind needs to do in order to survive. Then, secondly, we are reaching out because we are interested, and that interest is based on hope. The hope, the promise that these objects, they will free me from my suffering. Or we reach out because we are afraid that those objects will make me suffer. So hope and fear are also one of the reasons why the mind is moving towards objects. So the main difference between craving and clinging is that craving is moving towards the object and clinging is holding the object, landing on it, and then grasping it, not letting it go. So for example, if craving would not lead to clinging, it'd be an approach and an ending. The object would not be grasped. There would just be an approach. But this is incredibly subtle. It's really hard to recognize. The only way to recognize craving is that you recognize clinging. Clinging is the subsequent result of craving. Because there has been craving, there is now clinging. You cannot hold something that you have not approached first. Does that make sense? Okay, because you're holding something, it means you have approached it. So indirectly, we can see that there has been craving, but that's also too simple. Actually, it's a bit more complicated. Craving and clinging arise each second, again and again and again and again and again. So there is an approaching and a holding each second. Imagine it like this. So the mind is constantly refreshing, it's reaching out and it's holding, which makes it even more difficult to recognize properly. That's why I have simplified the definition to wanting what is not and not wanting what is. Because craving we can easily recognize by looking at our wanting or not wanting. There, the mind is approaching something because it wants something. The mind is pushing something away because it doesn't want that thing. Let's say there's knee pain when you're sitting in meditation. Your mind is approaching the knee pain, and then it grasps it, and then it bites its teeth into it, and it doesn't let go. So you start obsessing over the knee pain. The Buddha uses that word obsession a lot in his texts. I recommend read the sutras a little bit. For example, you can talk of an obsession with feeling. So there's a sensation in your knee, and the mind is obsessing over it. It's obsessing over it, it's interested in it, because it feels threatened by it. What feels threatened? Well, this can take away my happiness, and it can bring me suffering. That's the idea. And due to ignorance, we don't see the truth. The truth is, this is a sensation. That sensation neither takes your happiness, nor does it bring suffering to you. It is simply a sensation that exists in consciousness. That's all it is. First of all, it's not personal. You don't need to identify with it. It's not personal. It is a sensation existing in consciousness. The moment it becomes personal, it's the beginning of suffering. And second of all, if you're interested in it, it means you feel like your happiness is independent. It exists dependently on that sensation. That is an error as well. It's not actually true. But it appears very much like that. It's really difficult to look through this properly, but it's possible to. This is why advanced meditators, they have a completely different relationship to what would be incredible pain for others who are not trained. They don't have that same experience of pain. They might experience energy or sensation, but they're not experiencing it as stressful at all. They're completely relaxed around it. So there is no suffering. And suffering arises because we relate to the truth of what is in this moment in a very specific way. And yes, the relationship is through ignorance and craving. That's what gives rise to suffering. It's personal. It is painful. That's a statement of ignorance. It is painful. It points to the fact that you don't understand what pain really is. What is it caused by? What element of that sensation is the pain and what element of it is energy? What percentage of the experience that you're having right now is negative? And what percentage of it is just an experience? What is your contribution, in other words, to the suffering of this situation right now? For the normal, ordinary, untrained person, the idea would be you have to get rid of all your problems and you have to establish a lot of positive conditions and then your life will be awesome. That's the normal idea. For the meditator, it's whether your life is awesome or not doesn't depend on whatever condition is there. Your life is awesome if you're tied to a hospital bed, stage 4 cancer, shortly before passing away. It's awesome. To somebody that is truly detached from this idea that circumstances make you happy or they make you suffer, they have found true happiness, which is an independent form of happiness. It's not dependent on the way things look like. Just similar to the dreamer that would know that, oh, I'm dreaming right now. What happens in the dream suddenly makes no more difference. Anything can happen, but they know themselves to be safe. My body can burn, I can be locked into a room, whatever. It doesn't matter because it's anyways just a dream. So there is a great liberation that happens in recognizing that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. Those of you who already had that experience, you know. To become conscious, aware, the removal or the ending of ignorance ultimately reveals a lot of happiness. Because suddenly you understand you don't have to be afraid of stuff. Stuff is not your enemy. Life is not your enemy. Things are not your enemy. People are not your enemy. The enemy is and always has been ignorance and craving. And then as a result, taking things personally and so on and so forth. So I said already in the beginning, how do we recognize craving? Now you have all the definitions. I've explained what craving is and how it arises and given you examples. Now what you can do is just simply during your meditation, notice how your mind moves towards objects all the time. There's 6 objects that it moves to. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought. Those 6. It doesn't move anywhere else. But simply your mind being interested in it. Just learn to observe that. That's craving. The less you're interested in objects, the more you approach what we call meditation. You cease your interest in thoughts, in sound, in sight, in smell. This is what it means when you say introspection or withdrawing to the inside, the mind turning in to itself. It's not scattered outside anymore. It's now converging back into itself. That is meditation. And that arises if you let go of all the outside stuff. Therefore, it is not meditation if you're listening to music. It is not meditation if you're visualizing or imagining things. It is not meditation if you're talking to yourself, even if it is a very holy mantra. It is not meditation if you are engaged in subtle imagination, such as an imagination of spaciousness, and so on. Yes? None of that is really meditation. You're still attached to objects. Your mind is still holding, grasping, craving, clinging onto an object. While that is necessary to enter meditation, true meditation is at the end of that holding. Is the mind even dropping that object? So you might use breathing, for example, classic breathing meditation, yes. You're basically craving and clinging to your breath. But that means you have stopped craving and clinging to sight, sound, smell, taste, and thought. The only thing you're really attached to in this moment is just feeling. And alone through that simplicity, that is just only one thing you're holding, not 6, you feel incredible relief, great bliss, great happiness. You can figure this out by yourself. Every time your mind successfully merges with your breathing and stays with your breathing for long enough, you'll feel a gradual increase of happiness, turning into bliss, deepening more and more. The more you let go of other things, the more happy you feel. If you understand this from direct experience, you understand the mechanics of happiness. You also understand the mechanics of suffering. You then, all by yourself, your own experience tells you very clearly, the moment you reach out to an object and grasp it, that moment you're burned by that object you're holding. The moment you're holding, you have to tense your hand. And it's that tension that comes with the holding that's already the beginning of suffering. So if you keep your hand open, then there is no suffering. The moment you grasp, you contract, the heart closes, you're already suffering. So those are the mechanics. Now you know what to look out for and how to go beyond it. Practice. Discover it for yourself, not just intellectually hearing these things and going, yeah, it makes sense. And you go back home and forget about it. But actually bring it into your practice. Discover it, study it. Look at these kind of dynamics inside of yourself. So you can see very, very clearly that what I've been speaking of today actually holds true in your own experience. It doesn't matter what your background, whether you're male or female or Indian, American, whatever, doesn't matter. Holds true. True means true. It works. As you release, suffering ends. As you hold, suffering flares up. All right. That's enough for today. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. So I met this woman. She was a master of
Vipassana?
Yeah. And she learned the ultimate truth, she said. Now, so I'm wondering, just like the head monks, they learned the ultimate truth. And she's saying, I mean, I read a book, and once you reach the ultimate truth, you kind of can't go back. So where does then the craving of these people that are still involved in sexual scandals, corruption still going on in head monks, but they know the ultimate truth? So how does that correlate?
Very good point. It doesn't.
I'm wondering.
That's exactly the problem, right? It doesn't correlate.
So they don't know the truth then?
Yes.
Or they think they know the truth, but they don't.
Yes.
Is that...
But yeah, fair. I mean, I wouldn't even just say that a lot of them are just evil and they're like, I just tell those fools that I'm enlightened, but I abuse them on the other hand. A lot of those people actually think they do know, but they don't. Here's the measurement. I think it's really important to have that measurement. The measurement always boils down to morality. How congruent is your morality with your attainment? If your attainment is very high, your morality is very high. If your attainment is very high, it means you have no more interest in objects. Why would you have interest in sex? It ends. There's no more interest in it. If you feel fulfilled and fully blissful, which is a hallmark of actually experiencing ultimate truth, why would you stoop down to a much lower level of bliss and happiness which comes from sex? Plus, sex usually comes with a rat's tail of problems too. Why would you engage that? If you already have what you want, why want other things? Yeah. So a hallmark of great attainment is always great moral integrity. That's how you can measure. Yes.
And no one can kind of, if you say now suddenly, I'm enlightened.
Yeah.
Can no one kind of test you on that, or suddenly you become Buddha when you die?
Yeah, well.
Or how does it work? Do people kind of
Yeah.
they test you for certain things, or
Yeah.
There is a body that tests you, independent, monk or
Yes.
society organization.
Yes. Yes. Well, first of all, the problem with making such statements is you will fall under scrutiny If you cannot handle that kind of scrutiny, then don't make those statements, first of all. That's why masters who have actually attained usually live completely under the radar. They're not very well known. They're more like in the shadows. They have no interest in attracting massive attention or anything like that. That usually unfolds naturally when some students of theirs have discovered, oh, this person is really great, and start to recommend and so on, and then kind of things grow from there. It is a very good question. How do you determine as a student, let's say, whether a teacher is actually worth his or her salt? You do by carefully observing the teacher's conduct. So that usually you can do by living with them. That would be in a monastery, you have very little private sphere. You can observe your teacher a lot. You can see them. How do they behave? How do they behave when they are, especially when they're put under pressure, when they're sick, when they're hurting, when people attack them, when they have like a shitstorm going on or something online, how do they deal with that? So the way the teacher handles suffering and keeping moral integrity, that you should observe and you can observe. It is said in the Tibetan text that you should observe your teacher very well, about 3 years to a maximum of 12 years. But 12 years is really stretching it. I mean, if you're not sure after 12 years, like what are you doing, right? You're wasting 12 years of your life just checking out someone. So you need to, but they say it's kind of like a maximum, so to give you kind of an idea. And then secondly, how do you know? Well, another enlightened being knows. So the Buddha would know. But somebody that's below your pay grade cannot know. So if you have enlightenment, I wouldn't know because I don't have enlightenment like that. Yes? I can only assume based on your conduct and based upon recommendations. That's the third one. Recommendations. Just like we go for reviews when we choose our next hotel, you go for reviews when you're checking out a teacher. What's their lineage? What's their background? Where do they come from? What are their teachers? What do their teachers say about them? What does their community say about their progress and attainments? What about their students? How is their conduct? If you have a teacher and their students are behaving really wildly, no morality, no conduct, and so that kind of looks bad for the teacher, yes? Especially if the teacher would claim anything. And fourth, last but not least, is always be careful with people self-proclaiming attainments. To me, that's a big red flag. Why would I need to say it? If I have an attainment, why does there arise the impulse in me to pronounce and proclaim to people who anyways don't know my mind that I'm attained? Why? So anytime a teacher would tell me I'm enlightened, I would ask them, what is your motivation to tell me that? Maybe. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. We don't have to make any judgment right away, but just notice what is the answer. So why are you sharing this with me? Or test them straight away and say, well, I don't care. See how they react. Oh, I'm enlightened. Yeah, I don't give a damn. Prove it. Is another good point. I'm enlightened. Prove it. And levitate. Shoot fire and water out of your pores like the Buddha did. Go ahead. Otherwise, it's just big words. What can I do? What are those big words? How do they help me? They don't help me at all. An enlightened teacher isn't interested in self-advertising. Enlightened teacher is interested in helping, if at all. They would help. Not by telling, I'm awesome, but by actually helping you and making you awesome. And if you spend a lot of time with them and you become awesome, meaning you're happy, you're at ease, you're beyond suffering, great. No further words are required. It works. You're gone beyond suffering. And only you can verify because you've done the work. That's the point. Anyways, otherwise it's just words. There's a lot of people who claim a lot of things. And I see no benefit in it. Some people want to know my story. How have I attained? I have not. I've not attained. And what is my story? How would that be interesting? I could lie to you, right? I just tell you some amazing story. Now what? How does that help? I just come up with something. Just pull it out of my non-existent sleeve. I say, well, when I was 3 years old, I sat under a Bodhi tree and suddenly went into deep meditation for 48 hours, and then it came out and I felt so loving and kind, and since then, blah, 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 whatever. And now what? How's that?
End of the year.
How does it change your life? Maybe now you feel like, wow, this guy's awesome. And then what? Then what? You're going to go back home and you're going to have a lunch. While you're having lunch, you've already forgotten that this guy's awesome. If it's not about you, it doesn't matter. If it's about me, it doesn't matter. If it's about you guys, right? You're here, it's about you. You are here for you. Are you not? You're not here for me. I hope you're not here for me. Because you don't know me. Heck, I don't know myself. There's nothing. This is about you. So you get some benefit or not? Good. Nice. So watch out for those kind of things. Yes. Yes.
I have a question. So you mentioned something about pain, how when you have pain, like for instance on your knee, you're supposed to not think about the objects, which is the sensation. So how do you, you're in pain, so like how do you deviate away from that? What should be your focus? I mean, I know that focus shouldn't be anything. That's the whole point of meditation. But then, when you're in a state of pain, and let's say the pain is bad, how do you transition into a state of peace?
First of all, in the beginning, you should train to sit still for an hour. Build that up. That should be your first concern. Learn to sit still for an hour. Do yoga. That's what yoga is for, actually. So you do your yoga stretches, you go to the gym, you eat healthy, you sleep well, and so on, until you can sit still for an hour. First step. Once you can sit still for an hour, you won't be beyond pain. I mean, anyone here that has been studying a while with me, you all can testify that because you can sit still for an hour, you're beyond pain, right? Yeah, correct? Yeah, it's gone, right? It's like this. So there will always be pain because that's the nature of the body. But it will be much more so that you can reflect about it, you can handle it. Patience, you need to be able to endure, endure. You can handle so much more than you think. So stay. Then you need to have composure. That's the third point. Your mind needs to be very calm so you can investigate the pain. You're not swallowed up by it. If you're swallowed up by it, then it's impossible to get anything out of it. But if you're not swallowed up by it, you can observe it, you can stay still and look at it. And as you look at it, you will see through it. And when you see through it, you remain unaffected by it. You see it for what it really is, which is sensation. And that sensation on the deeper level is empty. It doesn't have any kind of substance to it. And it is not personal. When you see that clearly, suffering ends. Suffering ends, the pain ends. So it's like a chain effect. For that, you need to have some initial stability. Your mind needs to be quiet, stable. You need to have some skill in sitting still. that first. And what I said before is not, you should not focus on it. That's how you heard it, maybe. There's a difference between what I said and what you heard. If I said, you should not feel it, you should not focus on it, this is impossible. How? You're obsessing over it already. That's what is. The thing is, rather than coming in with should statements, you want to train yourself to see what is for what it is, rather than imposing rules. See what is. See it clearly. The more clearly you can see it, the less of a problem it is. Yes? Okay. You're welcome. So that's why the first thing, always train to sit still and train to stay with one thing. Proper breathing meditation, for example. All right? Okay then. Yeah, thank you very much for coming. Have a good time. We hope you enjoyed this episode and had a meaningful time. For more information and upcoming events, head over to our website at phuket-meditation.com. Thank you very much for listening and have a wonderful day.